Nityanandam everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's the Kundalini Yogini. Thank you guys for joining me again. Today I wanted to make a video about a common question which a lot of vegetarians and vegans, or even maybe spiritually conscious people making diet changes in their life, get asked, and that is why they don't eat fish or why they do. And usually as a vegetarian or vegan, a lot of people wonder why we also don't eat fish, or sometimes even assume that we do eat fish still, which I find really interesting, that people qualify it as a different category than meat. I've never really understood that personally, but I think it can definitely stem from cultural understandings, different kind of cultural understandings about what is considered meat outside of red meat. So I want to dive into this topic and break some myths about fish that we're quite often told. Things like that it's very healthy for us to consume fish, and that it's actually sustainable. All of which are completely false, and I'm going to dive into this video on how exactly this industry functions and why it is extremely detrimental to our planet, just as much as animal agriculture is on land, means the meat, dairy, beef industry. So the first thing we sometimes think about fish is that it's more sustainable, or we automatically make the assumption, I used to do this myself, that the industry has less problems than factory farms do. Because we've seen, quite often so many videos, maybe from PETA or different other protesters and activists, of, animals getting exploited on farms, cows and sheep and pigs. But usually fish are behind the scenes. Not only, I think, is there a problem because they're less relatable to us as human beings, I think because they're not mammals, or at least fish aren't, right? We have dolphins and whales, which are a different story, but quite often when we're thinking of fish, it's easier to distance ourselves from the life, because we cognize them as a lower being, as less sentient, less feeling, more kind of stupid, and less sensory, right, than a cow or a sheep might be. But fish are extremely intelligent beings, and not only this, even if you don't connect to fish right away, which is natural, this is how it was for me actually. I had less of a time feeling empathy with fish. Dolphins, sharks, large ocean predators are directly affected by fishing in our oceans. So I'm going to dive a little bit into that. And these are some of the most, right, if not the most sentient beings we have on planet Earth other than humans. How fishing is not sustainable, okay? There's huge environmental impacts to fishing. Over 3/4 of the world's fisheries are either exploited or completely depleted already. Yes, this is 2018, right? 2018, and we are already almost completely out of the stock of fish we have in the world. And our planet is like 70% water. So this is insane. Because of the growing demand for fish, the overconsumption of fish in communities all around the world, especially even communities that wouldn't naturally have fish a part of their diet, we have extreme diagnosis of overfishing, and this is so damaging. This is disrupting the entire ecosystem. If you think about it, right? 3/4 of fish are gone out of the ocean, which would normally be in those locations. Not only that, 90% of large ocean predators, this is dolphins, sharks, whales, and a few others, are gone, are dead, are extinct. So 90%. This is extremely heartbreaking for me to even talk about, because that's disastrous that we've done that much damage in such a short amount of time, since the Industrial Revolution really took off. 90% already gone. How are we going to repair that damage if we're still continuing being a part of this cycle? Consuming fish, consuming sushi, thinking that it's a sustainable thing over meat. It is very much not the case. The United Nations and many other agricultural organizations have even projected that by 2048, we will have completely fishless oceans. By 2048, at the rate we're going. So to sum it up for you guys, there is no such thing as sustainable fishing, period. So the next point I want to address is the cost of life. And fishing doesn't only take the fish that we consume along with it. You guys might have heard already, it is a little more common knowledge, that fishing catches a lot of other things in the net which are not supposed to be caught. Tuna is really infamous for this, right? The tuna industry. Dolphin safe tuna is a thing, right? Where a lot of tuna brands have, you know, nonprofits like Greenpeace have gone after them because they quite often catch dolphins and porpoises in the nets along with the fish that they're catching in those areas. So certain brands of tuna are safer brands to buy because they don't hurt dolphins and fish. This is just something to make us feel better about consuming fish, which is still wasting so much life, other than even the fish we're eating, right? For every 1 pound of fish caught, up to 5 pounds of unintended species are caught, killed, and literally thrown away, discarded. So up to 5 times the amount of fish which we are actually trying to catch for the food we're eating, tuna, shrimp, whatever it is. 5 times that amount of unintended species get caught in the nets and literally thrown away. It's a mass slaughter. It's a mass genocide of all these species. Another very heartbreaking effect of fishing, now that we have it at such a large scale and we have really advanced technologies which help fishermen detect really even the smallest little fish in the ocean, they use sonar. And sonar is extremely disturbing and even painful for mammals, for marine mammals such as dolphins and whales. Sometimes they have been even known to beach themselves, literally committing suicide because they're going crazy from the noise. They have extremely sensitive, beautifully sensitive hearing because that's the language they communicate in with one another. And animal life is not the only life at risk. Human trafficking is a huge part of large fisheries, especially in Southeast Asia. Specifically, Thailand is actually infamous for this, of having human trafficked fishers because the demand is so high, there's not enough fishermen. So in countries around Thailand, like Burma and Indonesia, men are actually trafficked from their villages, sold for a few $100s, and put on fishing boats to literally be slaves for the fishing industry. This is where our fish is coming from. So if the fish or the whales or the sharks or the dolphins are not enough for you, human beings are being affected by this in a huge way that is not talked about and not seen. And one of the last myths I want to tackle with you guys is the idea that fish is actually good for our health. So this is very misconstrued. Yes, it can be definitely a leaner source of protein, and yes, quite often it doesn't have as much of the toxins or hormones that beef or chicken might because of the terrible levels it's gotten to in factory farms. But there's also many things inside fish which you do not want to be consuming and are not safe for your health. So fish is extremely high in cholesterol, and many diseases such as ALS, depression, diabetes, cancers, and even high anxiety have been linked to fish specifically. Another thing which you might have heard of already also is that fish contains high levels of mercury. Mercury is poison to the human system, extremely toxic, can lead to violent seizures of the body and lead to death eventually at high levels. And they've done numerous tests the last few years. So many tests, I really actually dare you guys to Google it if you're brave enough, because it is scary, the levels of mercury that are in our fish, which is being allowed in our fish, even by the FDA. There's so many local news channels actually have done tests of this because, I don't know, it became like a big craze in the news. I remember a few years back I was even seeing it all over our local news. So most of the fish they tested it not only from supermarkets, like cheap sushi you can buy, but a ton of different restaurants, including extremely high-end restaurants like Benihana's and really fancy sushi and fish places. Every single one tested above the safe level of human consumption. So this is just being put out on the shelves, and just so you guys know how the FDA tests mercury, it's a very kind of tedious process and a little expensive the way they do it. And the food is actually sent out to the supermarket or to the store, whatever, and to your plate. And 2 weeks later, the test results come back to the FDA. Only then they recall the certain levels of mercury. If the fish contains it, they'll recall after people have already consumed it. So you're not being protected to your highest interest at all by our food safety measures. So you need to take this into your own hands. And one really disgusting thing that fish quite often has a ton of is plastic. Because of the high levels of waste, trash, and plastics that are dumped into our ocean, because now we've decided that that is going to be our junkyard, fish are consuming a ton of plastic, especially microfibers, which are in a lot of products we use. It's becoming a part of the fish because we're putting it in the ocean and we're eating it and getting that in return. If that isn't karma for you, I don't know what is. So please avoid eating fish. They contain so many unknown, disgusting, and very dangerous things, some of which, right, are mercury and plastics, and a ton of pollution which is going into our oceans, go into the fish, and then go right into us. So not only is fish not good for our health, and it is very unsafe and unknown, but a lot of life is at risk here. Not only fish, but large ocean predators and human beings who are being affected by this. Fishing is not sustainable in any way. And if this video wasn't enough for you, definitely encourage you. Actually, I really would enjoy for you guys to do your own research. I would highly recommend the documentary Cowspiracy. It's definitely one which is more focused on the environmental effects of animal agriculture, which includes the fishing industries. And it is an incredible documentary. Leonardo DiCaprio helped produce it. And it's one of my favorite of all time. I always recommend it to people if they're interested in going vegetarian or vegan. But it's extremely informative at every level, and they use data and statistics from all the official government organizations and the United Nations, so it's very well certified and credible source of information. And I'm also linking down below a few amazing videos from the Vegan Activist YouTube channel. I've started to watch his videos, and they're very helpful and informative also. So if you guys want quick tips on how to go vegan overnight or why you shouldn't eat fish from his perspective, you can check out those videos also. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this video was informative for you and can help you move towards more conscious diet, which would include removing fish from it. And I hope that you can share this with your friends and family and help not only their health, but help our planet ultimately, and for all of us to live in a more conscious and healthy world all together. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you soon. Nityananda.